I've published over 60 build guides on my channel, but I have to come clean. I've been using the same build now for all solo content for most of this year. Heroic Retaliation, check. Master Difficulty Climax Mission, check. Legendary Strongholds, check. All those builds that sell you on insane damage are all well and good, but dying as a solo player in the middle of Retaliation or a Legendary Stronghold fucking sucks. But being hard to kill only goes so far. For game modes like Heroic Retaliation where you're up against the clock, you also need to be able to steamroll enemies, which this build can do. In this video I'm going to show you the build, how it works, where to get the gear, and how to play the build optimally. So here's the build. 3 pieces of Gilligard, which comes with 5% total armor, 60% health and 2% armor regeneration. And on the chest piece I'm running the Talent Glass Cannon. The Memento backpack, which in my opinion is the best exotic for solo players. There are 3 things that set it above other exotics. Its 3 cores give me 15% weapon damage, 170,000 armor and a skill tier. Its long-term buff that adds 30% weapon damage, 30% skill efficiency and 3% armor regeneration, which only needs 1 trophy to be picked up every 5 minutes to keep this buff up permanently. And then there is its short-term buff you get each time I pick up a trophy, which with this build adds 15% weapon damage, 40% bonus armor and 5% skill efficiency. Contractor's Gloves with 10% LMG damage and its unique 8% damage to armor attribute. 1 piece of improvised gear which has no brand set bonus but does come with a mod slot. The Pestilence LMG is one of the best exotic weapons in the game, having received great buffs with Title Update 22. While its weapon damage is solid, what makes it exceptional is its talent, Plague of Outcasts. This applies a debuff to enemies that deals damage over 10 seconds, equal to 5000% weapon damage when at max stacks. If the enemy dies, these stacks then jump to a nearby enemy within 25 meters. For my secondary weapon, I'm running the Lexington with Streamline, a talent that scales well when running blue cores just like this build. I'm running the Survivalist Specialization, and for my skills the Reviver Hive and the Striker Drone. So that's the basic build, and this is how it works so well. But very quickly before that, a quick aside. YouTube's algorithm is fucking weird, and while you have found my content now, you might never see it again. So hit that subscribe button before it's too late. This build stacks protection from elites, which reduces incoming damage from elite and named enemies. On my gear I'm running 5 12% protection from elite mods, which gets me to 60%, with a further 10% coming from the Survivalist Specialization to get to 70%. Now you can get to 75% if you have 13% mods. I am apparently the unluckiest bastard in the world though, as I've never got one in around 4,000 hours of playtime. But what about non-elites who make up a lot of the enemies you see in Heroic Retaliation? There are 5 things that I have included in this build that make me tanky enough to deal with these. Firstly, with 4 blue cores and the brand set bonuses from the Gilligard brand set, I'm running 1.6 million armor and 561,000 health, which gives me a large enough health pool that I won't go down too quickly. On top of this, there is the bonus armor each Memento trophy gives me, which has a great buffer before my armor starts taking damage. If my armor does get too low though, then the 5% armor regeneration I have from the Memento backpack and the Gilligard brand set get me back to full armor very quickly. The Striker Drone helps to distract enemies, which reduces the amount of incoming damage I am taking. And finally, if I do go down, the Reviver Hive will bring me back. So let's have a look at how the build steamrolls enemies. As I said before, the Pestilence is one of the best exotic weapons in the game. With the 3 weapon damage cores I'm running, the LMG damage and damage to armor from Contractor's Gloves, the weapon damage buffs from the Memento backpack and the Talent Glass Cannon, my core weapon damage is very reasonable. But what makes the build so effective is that all of these buffs also buff the Plague of Outcasts debuff damage. These hit for more than 900,000 damage a tick, which is more than enough to take down non-elite enemies without even shooting them. Every attribute on the build is rolled to critical hit chance or critical hit damage, because all of the mod slots are being used for protection from elites, and the Pestilence does not come with any critical hit mods. This is not a build that really leans into it. 40% critical hit chance and 81% critical hit damage is about the best I can do. The Striker drone does add to my damage output, which can be very useful when enemies are hiding behind cover. So that's how the build works, but where do you get the gear? The Memento backpack is an open world drop, so you can get it through any activities or exotic cache. Probably the best way to farm for it though is Countdown, with a targeted loot set to backpacks. Not only do you have a chance for it to drop while you are playing this game mode, you can also buy exotic cache at the Countdown vendor for a further chance. Pestilence is a DZ exclusive weapon, so farming DZ landmarks until one drops is an option, but I'm sure many of you won't fancy your chances of extracting one successfully. The good news then is that the blueprints for both of these exotics can be obtained through retaliation, so if you do want to avoid PvP, then you can just craft them. The build does use the Chill Out Gilligard mask, which comes with 2 mod slots. Given the build relies on the protection from elites mods for when you are taking on elite enemies, it is key that you farm for this. The Chill Out mask can be attained from the Loot Goblin, who appears all over the world, but there are 3 locations that I think are easiest to farm: Jefferson Trade Center, DZ South Entrance, and DCD Headquarters. Follow the instructions playing on screen for this. The rest of the Gilligard gear can be farmed in Countdown. Improvised gear is not found in the open world, but it is crafted at the crafting bench. The final thing to mention on this is that if you don't have a Lexington, don't worry. I hardly ever use my secondary with this build, so you can pretty much run anything you like. In order to play this build optimally, you do need to change the way you think a little. Red and purple enemies are the most dangerous, so in any encounter, you should look to take them out first. When at max memento stacks, taking on elite enemies is actually fairly easy, as armor regenerates almost as quickly as they can deal damage. But do be careful when taking on larger groups of enemies. Even with all of the protection from elites, when faced with many elite enemies you will still take damage quickly due to glass cannon's damage amplification, so be aware of where your cover is and you use it when you need to get back up to full armor. Once Pestilence stacks are at max, they will burn through enemies quickly, so try to focus the enemy with the highest stacks to keep them up and bouncing from enemy to enemy. Use the Striker drone to distract enemies while you're doing this, letting you unload without any distraction. And do be aware of how much ammo you have in your mag. The reload time on the Pestilence is not quick, so getting caught out in the open while you're reloading is not ideal. Finally, don't be afraid to rely on the Reviver Hive to pick you up if you need to push and get the Pestilence stacks going. It's a skill that is there to be used, so use it. This is the only build I use. There are plenty of other build guides though up on my channel, so if you're looking for something different, a selection are being shown now.